The Big Valley wasn't just a Western series, it was a television legend that left a lasting mark on millions of hearts. With the fierce and commanding Victoria Barkley and Heath, the brooding, charismatic, illegitimate son, the Barkley family became a symbol of strength, loyalty, and love. But behind the spotlight, many of the actors who brought this beloved show to life faced heartbreaking struggles, illness, scandal, and quiet tragedies that most fans never knew. In this video, we're going to uncover the untold chapters of their lives, the painful truths hidden behind the camera. If any story here speaks to you, leave a comment below. And don't forget to hit like to help keep their... Barbara Stanwyck played Victoria Barkley, the iron-willed matriarch, a woman who held her family together with grace, grit, and unshakable strength. She was the anchor in every storm, and for millions of viewers, she was a symbol of resilience. But behind that iconic role was a woman scarred by a lifetime of silent battles. Born Ruby Catherine Stevens in Brooklyn on July 16, 1907, Barbara's life shattered before she could even spell her name. Her mother died in a horrific streetcar accident when Barbara was just 4. Days later, her father vanished without a trace, as if grief had swallowed him whole. What followed was not a childhood, but a long endurance test. Barbara and her brother were separated, bounced between strangers, exposed to abuse, and forced to grow up with wounds so deep they echoed through every chapter of her life. She wasn't born strong, she was made that way by pain. From a nightclub dancer clawing for survival, she became a Broadway star, then a queen of Hollywood. But the spotlight never healed what was broken inside. Her first marriage to actor Frank Fay was a nightmare. Fay, a raging alcoholic, dragged her through years of emotional chaos. They adopted a son, Dion, who later changed his name to Anthony and publicly accused her of being cold, controlling, and incapable of love. That wound never closed. Her second marriage to Robert Taylor looked like a fairy tale, but it was crafted by MGM like a script, not a love story. After more than a decade, it ended quietly, leaving behind another chapter of quiet devastation. In Hollywood, Barbara was revered and feared. She tightly controlled her image and was rumored to have betrayed colleagues during the Hollywood blacklist to protect her career. Co-stars whispered about her obsession with control. One makeup artist was fired on the spot, his crime touching her without permission. And then there was the smoke. Barbara had been addicted to cigarettes since the age of 9. Yes, 9. The habit gripped her for decades, and even after she quit late in life, the damage was done. Years of chain smoking, combined with bronchial illness from inhaling special effects on set, left her lungs in ruins. She spent her final years trapped in a body that was slowly betraying her. On January 20, 1990, Barbara Stanwyck passed away from congestive heart failure and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. She was 82. She died alone, in quiet defiance of a world that once adored her. Her estate was worth $10 million. But what she truly left behind was something more powerful, the legacy of a woman forged in fire, built from loss, who never asked for sympathy, only the chance to survive. Barbara didn't just play strong women, she became one. Not because life allowed her to be, but because life never gave her a choice. Richard Long played Jared Barkley, the calm, steadfast eldest son of the Barkley clan. A principled man, a voice of reason, a pillar of strength, at least on screen. But behind the scenes, the man who brought Jared to life was fighting battles no script could prepare him for. Born December 17, 1927, Richard was blessed with matinee idol looks and a disarming charm. In the 1960s, he was the kind of star who lit up a room without trying, but the light that shone so brightly in his youth was slowly dimmed, not by failure, but by pain. A childhood illness, pneumonia, left his heart permanently damaged. It beat on, quietly struggling for decades. But even more devastating was the emotional weight he carried. His first marriage ended in crushing tragedy. Susan Ball, his bride, died of cancer just 14 months after their wedding. She was 22. Richard never spoke much about it, but those who knew him said part of him never came back from that funeral. He remarried, but happiness remained just out of reach. In 1961, during a drunken rage, he was arrested for assaulting his wife, Mara Corday. They reconciled, but the scars, emotional, reputational, never fully faded. As the years went by, Richard spiraled deeper into alcohol, using it to silence the ache. On set, he became unreliable, often confused or angry. Producers stopped calling, friends drifted away. Fame, once his closest companion, became a stranger. In his final years, Richard continued to work, but it was a shell of the man he once was. His body was failing, his heart, already fragile, was giving out. And perhaps the cruelest twist of all, he faded from the spotlight without fanfare, his name barely whispered by the industry he once carried on his shoulders. He died at just 47, 4 days after his birthday, in a quiet hospital room in Los Angeles. No headlines, no curtain call, just silence. Richard Long left behind $2 million. But more than that, he left behind a performance that still lingers in the hearts of the Big Valley fans. The tragedy? That while the world remembered Jared, it quietly forgot Richard. Peter Breck played Nick Barkley, the fiery, hard-charging middle son of the Barkley family in the Big Valley. With fists always ready and a heart that beat loud for justice, Nick was the family's muscle and soul. Breck's performance was pure electricity, loud, passionate, unforgettable. But when the camera stopped rolling, the man behind Nick was unraveling. Born March 13, 1929 in Rochester, New York, Peter was known for his intensity, both on-screen and off. That same energy that made Nick Barkley larger than life could turn volatile. He didn't just act, he lived his roles. So deeply, in fact, that during a break in filming, he once punched a co-star who had insulted his character. It wasn't acting anymore, it was identity. After the Big Valley, Peter's career slowly faded. The strong, chiseled cowboy who once dominated primetime found himself drifting through low-budget horror films and foreign productions few remember. His passion for control, especially over scripts, often led to arguments with directors, making him a difficult name to hire. At home, things weren't any calmer. Though he married dancer Diane Bourne in 1960 and fathered a son, Christopher, whispers swirled of a cold, controlling demeanor that strained their family life. Then came the tragedy that no parent should ever face. Christopher died of leukemia at just 30 years old. That loss shattered something deep inside Peter, a wound he never quite let the world see. In 2010, another cruel blow arrived. Peter was diagnosed with dementia. His wife gently informed fans that while he could still read their letters, he could no longer sign autographs or attend events. The once vibrant cowboy who filled living rooms with fire and fury faded quietly into the shadows. He spent his final years in Vancouver, far from the spotlight, held up only by memories and the woman who had stood beside him through it all. Peter Breck passed away on February 6, 2012, after a long hospitalization. He was 82. His net worth was modest, around $1 million. But that number doesn't measure the true weight of his legacy. Peter brought Nick Barkley to life with such force that even decades later, fans still remember the roar in his voice, the fight in his spirit, and the pain he quietly carried behind his eyes. Douglas Kennedy played Sheriff Fred Madden, a firm no-nonsense lawman who kept Stockton in check. He didn't appear often, but when he did, his rugged face and commanding voice gave Sheriff Madden the weight of quiet authority. Sadly, the man behind the badge was losing control of his own life. Born September 14, 1915, Douglas once seemed destined for stardom. He served with distinction in World War II, rising to the rank of major and working with the OSS, the forerunner of the CIA. When he returned to Hollywood, the screen welcomed him back. Tall, broad-shouldered, and steel-jawed, he carved out a niche in westerns, appearing in over 190 films and TV shows. But Hollywood is not kind to fading stars. By the 1960s, Kennedy was slipping. On the set of The Big Valley, he sometimes showed up reeking of alcohol, struggling to remember lines even with cue cards. The leading roles disappeared. So did the respect. Directors who once lined up to cast him now quietly crossed him off. At home, things were no better. Though married to Isabel Russell and father to a son, Douglas Jr., his name was often whispered in connection with affairs, fights, and a rumored illegitimate child. One lawsuit in Arizona nearly ended his career. Friends drifted away. Trust became rare. The spotlight grew colder by the year. In the end, Douglas Kennedy wasn't fired. He was forgotten. His final roles came in shows like Perry Mason and Hawaii Five-0. He filmed in Honolulu, but there were no red carpets, no press tours. Just a man trying to keep working while his body was shutting down. On August 10, 1973, just weeks before his 58th birthday, Douglas died of cancer in near obscurity. He was buried at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, a place of honor, though few in Hollywood took notice. The silence said it all. Douglas Kennedy once played heroes who brought order to chaos. But in real life, his own battles left him worn down and quietly erased. And maybe that's the cruelest twist of all. Not when fame ends, but when no one remembers it ever began. Paul Sorensen played Dave Sloan, the humble blacksmith of Stockton. Though his appearances were brief, his presence was grounding. Dave Sloan wasn't loud or flashy, but he was there when things got tough, a steady hand in the Wild West chaos. Ironically, that same kind of steadiness eluded Paul Sorensen in real life. Born on February 16, 1926 in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Paul built a long resume in television, from Gunsmoke to Dallas, from The Virginian to The Brady Bunch. He was one of those actors you always recognized but never truly knew. And maybe that's what haunted him. Always in the background, never the star. Over time, the missed opportunities began to eat at him. Paul reportedly carried a deep bitterness about never breaking into leading man territory. That quiet resentment sometimes bubbled to the surface. He was known to belittle younger actors, and in one infamous incident, even threatened a director during an on-set argument in the 70s. His personal life fared no better. Paul's marriage to actress Jacqueline May was marked by turbulence. After accusations of infidelity with a stuntwoman, she left him. Though they later reconciled, the wounds remained, invisible but never fully healed. In 1973, Sorensen was investigated for tax evasion, a scandal that nearly erased the reputation he had spent decades building. But Paul didn't disappear into bitterness. Instead, in the late 1980s, he turned towards something unexpected: faith. Alongside his wife and son Christian, Sorensen became a minister. Together, they ran the Original Actors Workshop, mentoring young artists, offering not just technique, but a sense of grounding he himself had once lacked. It was redemption, not through fame, but through purpose. On July 17, 2008, Paul Sorensen passed away peacefully at the age of 82 in Cardiff-by-the-Sea, California. He left behind 2 sons, a sister, and a grandson, and perhaps just as importantly, a reminder that even in lives shaped by struggle and near misses, there's always a chance to leave a mark that goes far beyond the screen. Harlan Ward played Arthur Clever, the composed and intellectual figure who appeared sporadically. His character didn't say much, but when he did, people listened. That quiet strength wasn't just a role. It was a mirror of a man who lived most of his life in silence. Born on November 6, 1917 in Los Angeles, Harlan Ward built a career out of being the man in the background, the supporting presence who held stories together without ever stepping into the spotlight. Over 4 decades, he played detectives, doctors, and sheriffs across American television. Yet even after hundreds of roles, Harlan remained a stranger, not just to audiences, but to almost everyone around him. He never gave interviews, never lingered after shooting, never showed up to parties. Hollywood, with its noise and spectacle, never quite knew what to make of him. But behind that impenetrable shell was something darker than just privacy. In studio whispers, people spoke of affairs that blurred boundaries and left pain in their wake. One woman accused him of manipulating her emotions to the edge of despair. The studio buried the scandal, but the damage lingered, unseen but undeniable. Ward's world slowly became a fortress. He filled it with war memorabilia, conspiracy theories, and solitude. He claimed the government was watching him, the CIA was listening. Some called it paranoia. Others suspected the result of a life lived too long in isolation. Those who once called him a friend eventually stopped calling at all. By the end, Harlan Ward wasn't just reclusive, he was invisible. A man who had once been a steady face on screen was now a ghost, even among his peers. He made his final appearance in the Rockford Files in 1979, then faded from public view entirely. On March 13, 1980, he died of a heart attack at 62, alone, unknown, almost forgotten. He was buried at Los Angeles National Cemetery, a resting place for America's veterans. For a man obsessed with order, with legacy, it was a fitting end, even if no one was really there to say goodbye. Because maybe the most haunting truth about Harlan Ward wasn't what he did, but how quietly he disappeared. Mark Tapscott played Bates, the quiet, steadfast helper to the Barkley family in the Big Valley. He didn't speak much, but his presence always felt reassuring, a man you could count on in the background. But Mark's real life was not one of quiet peace. It was a life shadowed by war, rejection, and a sorrow that never quite lifted. Born Mark Loren Tapscott on December 15, 1924 in Bell, California, he served bravely as a U.S. Marine in both World War II and the Korean War. When he came home in 1957, he carried medals on his chest and memories in his mind he never talked about. Like many veterans, he sought comfort in purpose. For Mark, that meant acting. He entered Hollywood with hope, landing roles in westerns throughout the 1960s. By age 38, he became Bates, a loyal, soft-spoken fixture in the Big Valley. But behind the camera, life was crumbling. Between 1970 and 1980, Mark auditioned for more than 150 roles. Time after time, he was rejected. His phone stopped ringing. The spotlight that once gently touched him faded. With each closed door, his confidence eroded. Desperate for relief, Mark turned to gambling. Not the kind of gambling with glittering lights, but the kind held in smoky backrooms deep in Los Angeles. He chased wins, racked up debts, and found himself sinking in a hole he couldn't climb out of. His second marriage to Sybil Lyne suffered deeply. They stayed together, technically, but love had long gone silent. Rumors of an illegitimate child only added to the quiet turmoil, though Mark never spoke of it. On September 10, 1993, Mark Tapscott passed away in Los Angeles County at the age of 68. He died in solitude, far from the sets and scripts that once gave his life meaning. Today, his name is rarely spoken. But to those who remember the Big Valley, Bates was never just a background figure. He was a symbol of loyalty, and Mark Tapscott, in all his struggles, carried that same quiet dedication until the very end. Linda Evans played Audra Barkley, the golden-hearted daughter of the Barkley family, a vision of grace, beauty, and quiet strength in the Big Valley. At just 23, Linda brought warmth and complexity to Audra, captivating audiences not just with her looks, but with the soul she poured into the role. Yet behind those soft eyes and golden hair was a woman quietly battling some of life's deepest heartbreaks. Born November 18, 1942, Linda Evans was a star who seemed to have it all. But fame, as it often does, came with its shadows. Her first marriage to actor-director John Derek ended in one of Hollywood's most infamous heartbreaks. On Christmas Day, 1973, Derek left her for 17-year-old Bo Derek. Years later, Evans would describe it not just as a betrayal, but a wound that nearly shattered her. Her second marriage to businessman Stan Herman was short-lived. Then came a long, deeply personal romance with musician Yanni. They were together nearly a decade but never married, and when it ended, it did so without drama or public closure. Just silence and perhaps sorrow. Despite being hailed as a timeless beauty, Evans wrestled with insecurities. Hollywood's relentless standards dug deep, pushing her to endorse facial toning masks on television, not because she wanted to, but because she was desperate to keep up, to stay worthy in an industry that punishes age. After Dynasty, the hit show that earned her a Golden Globe and made her a household name, Evans stepped back from the spotlight. No scandals, no breakdowns, just a quiet retreat into a different kind of life. She turned to spirituality, meditation, and Eastern philosophy, attending retreats with Jay-Z Knight and seeking something the cameras never could give her: peace. Today, Linda Evans lives on a secluded 70-acre estate in Rainier, Washington. She shares it with her sister, a nephew, and a stepdaughter from long ago. Her world is quiet now, filled with writing, giving, and moments of reflection. At 83 years old, she still carries the grace that once lit up screens. Her last film appearance was in Swan Song, 2021, a gentle reminder that while time may change the face, it never dims the spirit. With an estimated net worth of $20 million, Linda Evans doesn't just leave behind a legacy of unforgettable roles. She stands as proof that resilience, even when quiet, can be luminous. The Big Valley gave us heroes we admired, but behind the scenes were lives marked by loss, resilience, and quiet strength. Some of these stars faced heartbreaks the world never saw, and though they're gone, the love they poured into every role still lingers. If their stories touched you, share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to honor the legends behind the screen.